Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as you probably know, I am currently in grad school. I'm studying for my MFA degree at Pacific University, and this week I just turned in the last of my assignments for my second semester, which means I'm officially halfway through the program. And this morning as I was journaling about the past year, I was realizing just how much I've grown as a writer and how many epiphanies I've had about the craft of writing. So I thought this midway point might be a great time to look back, take stock, and share with you a few of the things that I've learned about writing from this MFA program so far. So whether you love creative writing, or you're curious about an MFA program, or whether you're just interested to see what the life of a writer is like in grad school, then this video is for you. Let's jump in. So what is an MFA? MFA stands for Master of Fine Arts. Mine is in creative writing. And there's a lot of programs like this. I think they're all pretty similarly structured. But the program that I'm in is from Pacific University in Oregon, and it's a low residency program, which essentially means that twice a year to kick off the new semester, all the students reconvene in person. The daytime schedule is full of craft talks, classes, and workshops, and those are all designed to help you become a better writer. And then at night they host student and faculty readings, which is when everybody can come together and take turns sharing their work to kind of inspire each other. So during this residency, each student is paired with a faculty advisor who's going to be their kind of mentor figure for the next upcoming semester. And they create a study plan together, which is basically a list of the 20 books that you're going to read over the course of the semester, and then also a plan for the creative work that you want to accomplish as well. During the semester, you work one-on-one with this advisor, and every 3 weeks or so, you send them a packet that includes your latest creative work, maybe 15 to 20 pages, and then a couple reading commentaries as well. And then you always include a letter kind of explaining how you feel about your work, this packet, and how you're doing in your creative life. And then a few days later, your advisor responds with a similar letter, and then they give you a ton of written feedback about your creative writing. And that's everything from thematic, plot-related questions to written line-by-line feedback. By the end of the semester, you've completed 5 of these written exchanges back and forth, and you've got a pretty hefty stack of pages that you've written that you're proud of and revised multiple times. And then through the reading commentaries, you've also refined your critical reading skills as well. That's kind of an overall bird's eye view of the program. Now, do you need an MFA degree to become a writer? Obviously you don't, but I've always loved writing novels, and I knew that I wanted to take it seriously after I graduated college. So for me, pursuing an MFA degree was the right decision because, well, for a number of reasons, but primarily because I wanted that accountability with the advisor, regularly set deadlines so that I was getting creative work done on a consistent basis. But then also the community of writers, having a safe place to share my work. Having said all of that and kind of laid the context for you, let's go ahead and jump into 10 things that I've learned over the last year from this MFA program so far. The first thing I learned is that the more you read, the easier writing becomes. So to be honest, probably the hardest part of this entire program for me was getting through that 20 book per semester reading list. And I think that's because my instinct is to really slow down and hone in and study each book that I'm reading. And that's a little hard for me to do when I'm trying to read a new book every 5 to 7 days. But having said that, even though it was a challenge, reading that constantly, that consistently, what that ends up doing is it helps you sharpen your imagination, it builds your vocabulary, and it helps you start thinking of the world through words, through language. And I definitely saw that pay off when it came time to write, because the more authors and genres and ideas I was engaging with, the easier it became to kind of dive back into my own imaginative world when the time came. Second, I learned that deadlines are a writer's best friend. Accountability was probably the best part of this program because you knew that every 3 weeks there was another deadline, another packet due. You just have to keep going through whatever dry spell you're working through. I got so much writing done because it was required of me. I didn't have any other choice. And anybody who's ever tried to write a novel has experienced this, that everybody has so many demands on their time nowadays that if you don't consistently and intentionally carve out that time to get writing done, it's just not going to happen. So for me, the deadlines were huge. I was able to get so much work done that I was proud of, and looking back over the last year, seeing my manuscript in the best shape it's ever been in, that's all thanks to those deadlines, those regular every 3 week deadlines. This next one is kind of niche, but it's really interesting to me. I learned about the technique called defamiliarization, and this was a term coined by Charles Baxter, and it essentially means making the familiar strange or the strange familiar. A great example of this is The Virgin Suicides, if any of you have read that book. That's a really strange book because it's set in the most standard, familiar setting you can imagine, which is just like a middle-class neighborhood in a city. But because of the way he writes it and the way he presents his images, these familiar things feel very strange and kind of eerie. And I had to learn this technique in reverse because I'm writing a fantasy novel and I wanted to make the strange things of this new world familiar and accessible to readers. So like, for example, I had to root the magic system in very natural things like the woods or earth or smoke or soil. So the fourth thing that I learned came from a craft talk by Chris Abani, who's one of the amazing faculty members at Pacific, and he talked about how the reason we get so caught up in wondering what people will think of our work or who our ideal reader will be is because we're kind of searching for permission to seek things that resonate with us, and we're hoping that they'll resonate with other people too. So he was saying that the only way to create anything meaningful and lasting is to sail fearlessly towards those things that ignite your imagination, that speak really deeply to you, knowing that the fact that it matters to you is enough reason to keep going and do it to the best of your ability. And by doing that, it will inevitably impact other people as well. But the only real metric you have for how good something is pursuing those things that resonate with you, I guess. Number 5, I learned that sentence fragments are actually really, really fun, and they're a good thing in moderation. And I know you're not supposed to use them too often as a crutch, but learning this was really liberating to me because I love sentence fragments, especially in descriptions. And I actually learned this from the novel All the Light We Cannot See, just studying the way he does descriptions because they're so beautiful and poetic, and he'll kind of sneak in those sentence fragments here and there just to kind of like break up the sentence flow a little bit. But he also uses them to add details into paragraphs that helps make the scene more immersive. So yeah, I was really happy about that one. Number 6. Okay, so this one I learned in a craft talk by Kate Kennedy, but she was talking about the illusion of interiority. And she taught me that the greater the gap between what a character thinks and feels versus what they say and do, the more tension exists on the page. The next one is to share your work. So I've always been a pretty solitary writer. I've always kind of kept my novels and my writing close to my heart. And it's been a very long learning process, learning to be okay sharing my writing with other people because I want it to be perfect before I put it out in the world. But I feel like I'm finally at this point in my writing journey where I need to become more comfortable sharing my writing with other people. And I need to take some courageous steps out of my comfort zone. So this is particularly from workshops during the residencies, but also submitting your writing to an advisor who gets to know your writing style really well over a semester. That act of kind of almost publishing it to somebody else and seeing their reaction. For critical feedback, yes, but also to be able to see other people become caught up in the imaginative world you're creating. It's made me become a lot more attentive to an audience and shaping a story that other people can follow along with. It's so cool to be able to see other people resonating with something that you wrote that means a lot to you, to see them get caught up in it too in their own imaginative world. There's nothing like it. It's so special. Next, I realized there's just a certain magic to reading words aloud, especially in a room full of people, like at a student or faculty reading. It's like a spell being cast over everyone as they're all swept up. And it reminds me of when I was younger, my mom and dad used to read to our family aloud every night. And we would read through books like The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or Narnia or the Harry Potter series. And just being able to experience a story together like that, unfolding night after night. It's kind of the same feeling as when a TV show is airing that everybody's watching and experiencing at the same time together and everybody's talking about it. That feeling of communal storytelling, I think, is really special, and I love that this program is making space for that in my life again. The 9th thing that I've learned is close reading. So close reading, also known as attentive reading, is basically just the practice of analyzing a passage or a chapter of a book, noticing how the smaller elements of a scene, like word choice or sentence structure or rhythm or repetition, how those things all kind of play into the larger thematic structure of the work. So I've really loved continuing to do close readings through the reading commentaries in the program because they help me read critically but also stay attuned to just the absolute magic and power of language when it's done well. Anyway, so I thought it might be fun eventually to do some close readings here on this channel. So if there's any books or passages that you really love that you'd like me to dive into, just leave those in the comments below. So lastly is the value of being in the company of other writers. In college, I remember every single time somebody asked me what my major was and they found out I was studying English, the immediate question was like, what do you want to do with that? Or what's kind of an implied question beneath it was always, what's the value of that? And now there's just an incredible freedom in being in a company of people who see the world through language like you do, who love words and books and stories. So every time the writers convene at these residencies, there's always a flurry of conversation, this kind of zeitgeist, where all the craft talks, classes, workshops, lunch conversations even, they all kind of feed into this constant overarching conversation of the entire residency. And that's made even more special by the fact that in any given room at the residency, you have writers from all different backgrounds and ages and cultures. But the one thing that everybody has in common is this love for writing and stories. And so it's actually a very respectful community, and there's lots of fun conversations that go on. And I just always have so many great conversations with people while I'm there. So thank you for joining me as I look back and reflect on some of the things I've learned in the last year. And again, I just want to reiterate, you don't need an MFA degree to become a good writer, but it's been a really special experience for me for a number of reasons. I'm really grateful for the opportunity I've had to study at Pacific and for the incredible faculty and other students there that make it so special. So having said all that, my question for you today is, what is something your writing life has taught you in the last year? Go ahead and comment it down below, and I can't wait to see what you share. Wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.